Rockwell. Okay. He says, I have been working in municipal GIS for 20 years. I enjoy bringing GIS solutions to bear on government problems. I know how he feels. As when government works better, everyone benefits. There's no doubt about that. Will works for us. He's GIS coordinator for Sarasota, and his presentation is on work order management with ArcGIS Workforce. Would you help me welcome William Rockwell?
Guys. All right. Well, thanks for having me. I have a lot to go through, so I'm going to try to go fast because I don't want to go over my time allotment. But if anybody has any questions, feel free to stop me or put something in the chat. I'd much rather cover some topics that are useful rather than just blowing through all my information. And my presentation is publicly accessible as well, so I can always email you the link if there's something that I can share with you after. So, okay, so can everybody see my screen? Let me see if I can get this on.
Yep, looks great.
Okay, fantastic. So, for those of you that aren't familiar with ArcGIS Workforce is kind of a work order management system that ESRI does provide. It is an app in the App Store, and there's also a AGO or desktop component. It can be deployed on Portal and in ArcGIS Online. So you can have it kind of on premises or up in the cloud, depending on your setup or your preferences. And there's some limitations with ArcGIS Workforce, and this is just kind of how we went from a chaotic sticky note system of work order management to implementing a GIS-based digital work order management system that's built on ArcGIS Workforce, and how we got around some of those limitations and are able to provide all sorts of really great analytics and real-time data monitoring using things like dashboards. So I'll keep it brief. Sarasota. I did this presentation over on the East Coast a few months ago. So, but you guys probably, hopefully, maybe know where Sarasota is. We're over here just south of Tampa a bit. We have about 875 employees. We have 4 full-time GIS staff, which kind of goes back to the comments earlier about how sometimes the GIS staff is relatively small compared to the total number of employees. We do have an ELA with ESRI, and we do have a fairly heavy GIS user base with about 200 of those ESRI licenses being given out to users of various capacity, viewers and creators. So first thing, and I imagine a lot of municipalities or government agencies kind of have this problem, is we had a problem, and it was pretty evident. I began working for the city in 2019, early 2019 spring. And so I came down here, and it was evident that GIS wasn't really being utilized to its full extent. And I was told by the directors of several departments, like, we need help kind of getting off the ground here because we have GIS, but we're not really using GIS. And then I quickly noticed that there's some issues when it comes to things like asset management and work order management. So we had a huge paper problem. And as you can see in my little picture here, I was in a meeting with the parks operations director, and I noticed this giant 3-ring binder that said completed service requests on it. And I was like, okay, this is no good, because and if you ever wanted to look up any information on a event that the city had put on or some kind of project, and you wanted to calculate any kind of analytics or costs or any kind of information from it, you're basically going to a 3-ring binder and you're leafing through pieces of paper, which is kind of 1800s. So we had this bad sticky note system. People are basically printing out an email and handing it to somebody, and we're hoping that it gets done. We don't really know if it gets done or not. We kind of had this old system that one person knew how to work, We were being charged $40,000 a year to maintain this old unsupported software. And I'm not exaggerating where I asked them, like, well, why do you pay $40,000 for software that isn't supported anymore? And they're like, well, the guys at this company, the ones that kind of built it, have retired. And when if we have a problem, they actually call up the guys that have been retired, and then they try to help us out. So just a bad situation, obviously. Timesheets. So timesheets were similar. This picture here is a very long, kind of 4-foot long metal drawer that's obviously packed full of paper. And these guys are manually writing down things on a timesheet. And then the timesheets get stuck in these giant drawers, and that's where they go. And nobody, if you wanted to know how many hours of labor were spent on the 4th of July parade, for example, you're heading towards these giant drawers, and you're gonna try to fish out manual timesheets. And it was just awful, because obviously sometimes you can't even read what was written. So bad. And then once the drawer, the big metal drawer of paper, gets filled up, the paper goes from the big metal drawer into a banker's box, and the banker box goes into a closet where it gets archived, kind of Indiana Jones style at the end. Like, there's just this massive warehouse of, and it goes in there, and it's a fire hazard, I guess. I don't really know what they're doing with it, but there it is. And I was like, okay, we cannot do this anymore. Like, why are you doing this? And the guy that I'm talking to, he started at the city, 20 years ago. And he's like, oh, that's the way that they did it when I started. And so we just kind of kept doing it. And if you know anything about Admiral Grace Hopper, she was fairly amazing. And there's kind of this inertia that forms in organizations, and sometimes you have to bust through that inertia. Like, we've always done it this way, so we're going to keep doing it this way, even though it doesn't make any sense. So yeah, I had to break through that inertia, and we're not going to do this anymore. So I sat down with all these stakeholders after kind of getting my arms around the mess, and I was like, look, we're not doing this anymore. We're going to leverage GIS that we're already paying for with our ELA. This isn't going to cost us any more money, and this is free. It's hard to argue with free. We're going to automate all of these manual processes, almost all of them. There's no reason why a human being should have to take a stack of manual timesheets, and then that person, his name was John, he would take this stack of manual timesheets every day, and he would enter them into this unsupported computer system. And he would do that for about 4 hours every day. So half of this individual's job is to take a stack of paper that's been manually written and then manually input it into a system that is no longer supported. So I'm going to free up half of this guy's day, just right off the bat. We're going to get rid of all this paper. The Raiders of the Lost Ark closet with bankers boxes is going to go away. We're going to provide real-time analytics, and we're going to stop paying $40,000 a year so that these guys can actually enjoy their retirement and not be bothered anymore. So this is the hard part. And it's hard to make slides on what a business analyst does. And I don't mean business analyst in the sense that you might think being an ESRI GIS person. This isn't like the ESRI business analyst extension. This is business analysts and learning how your business actually operates. When a call comes in, who takes the call? Then what happens? Who does it go to? What's your time frame for when things actually get finished? And this is actually really hard because everybody just kind of knows it in terms of, hey, I've worked here for 5 years and this is how things run. But when you try to take that institutional knowledge and put it on paper, it's actually really hard to do. It's counterintuitive, but it's true. And so what you do is you essentially kind of flow chart out exactly how your organization works. And then once you actually flow chart it out, you can really identify some inefficiencies, redundant work, and all of these things. And it provides an opportunity to fix how your organization may have some pretty serious inefficiencies or deficiencies. And then you can attempt to roll those changes and those fixes into this new workflow that we're about to implement using ArcGIS Workforce. So this is an iterative process. This is not some master plan that gets hammered out in a conference room and then it gets rolled out and everyone's amazed. This is an iterative process. So you learn about the business in your organization, you build solutions based on what you've learned, you demonstrate how you've addressed the business functions of your organization, and you get feedback like, hey, I've created this workflow and this is how it's going to work based on not only our personnel, but the technology available to us. How is this going to work in your day-to-day life? Test it out, see if that works. Have someone go out into the park and see if they can actually do it. And then you get feedback and then you go back to the drawing board if need be. But we try to accommodate them when at all possible. You know, a lot of these guys out in the field, they've been with this city for, 15, 20, 25 years, sometimes longer. And it's hard to change their workflows overnight, but it is something that has to be done. So how are you going to do this? Well, ArcGIS Workforce is a mobile application that requires a mobile device. And I understand that buying a bunch of mobile devices can be a challenge in a strained budget situation. Luckily for us at the city, we had just switched from one cell carrier to another cell carrier. And I had a giant box of unused phones that I could distribute out to the workforce. And I know that some of you listening right now probably don't have that luxury. There are some very inexpensive SIM-less, I'll just say Android devices that are out there that you can purchase for about $150 a piece. And we're doing that. As these phones age out, the battery life isn't the best. And some of the guys that don't have the best eyesight, they want a bigger screen. And we are going out and we're buying these very inexpensive Android devices to give them out in the field. The crew leaders do have a mobile hotspot. And so a crew may go out, the crew leader has the hotspot. Each one of the individuals who are going to be dispatched on jobs, they do have a mobile device. They can do their timesheets, they can do their workforce in a disconnected environment and then sync up when they kind of get back to the truck or when they get back into the office. So that's kind of our setup. And for those instances where we did need real-time cellular connectivity, well, all of a sudden we have 40 grand where we can use some of that money to then purchase mobile devices when needed. So now comes the GIS part, right? Like, how do we actually make this ESRI workforce work for us, work for Sarasota? And so going into workforce, it's a work order management light. Okay, it does have some I don't want to say deficiencies, but it is missing some things that perhaps a full-fledged work order management system may have. And so it is very easy to use. The assignments are easy to create and assign. And for us, we have this sitting in ArcGIS Online. We do not have it on premises. It is sitting up in the cloud. So some of the things that I'm sorry, go for it.
Be around the NFL is involved and stuff of like maybe more teams clamoring or clamoring for him, I should say. That's
Okay, are we good?
Sorry about that, William.
No problem, no problem. So it doesn't have a timesheet mechanism. All the users and assignment types are GUID fields. And if you try to bring a GUID field, that's not something that you can filter by in a dashboard, unfortunately. So that kind of created an extra step when it comes to breaking out dashboards on a per worker basis. No ability to share, delegate assignments, and no email integration. So, one of the biggest things you get asked for is like, okay, great. When a ticket gets created, we need to notify not just one individual, but perhaps a group of individuals that this ticket's been created, and out of the box Workforce doesn't do that. But it does have its strengths. I don't mean to talk it down. We are using it. We use it every day. And when it doesn't work, I definitely hear about it. And I then have to turn around and yell at ESRI to make sure that it works. But it is free with our ELA. And it is very, very difficult to argue with free. People can say, well, it doesn't do this and doesn't do that. And I'll be like, yeah, well, it's free. So, okay. It does, because ours is AGO based. You have the benefits of a cloud application, and that is typically that it is up a vast majority of time. Of course, that is also a weakness because now you are wholly dependent on this cloud service being up and operational. And when it's not, there's really not a whole lot you can do about it until ESRI gets it back up and running. We are saving reams and reams and pallets of paper. So that's obviously great from a budgetary standpoint and from a storage standpoint as well. Real-time analytics, accountability, just fantastic there. And for those of you who have made dashboards or a heavy user of dashboards, you know how powerful a good dashboard can be, especially for upper management. Though some of the problems though that you do need to watch out for is that it is a mobile application. It requires a mobile device, and I touched on that a little bit before. There is a learning curve for individuals who have spent the last 20 years sketching stuff down on paper. Now they have to learn a mobile application, and I can't speak for your organization, but for ours, a lot of our field guys were not the most technical savvy individuals, and there was a little bit of a learning curve that they had to deal with, and that I was over at Public Works doing training sessions with the guys and just running them through fake scenarios. So several times to make sure that they could learn how to use this. There's always institutional inertia when there's change, and you do have to bust through that inertia. And you do have to make sure that you create ROIs for managers and for the organization to make sure you get buy-in. And we only have so many ESRI licenses. We are lucky to have an ELA, but even that, there is an upper limit to the number of licenses you have. And so if you have a large organization with a lot of field crew, ESRI licenses are something that you're going to have to watch for. So we have 5 workforce projects. We have parks, public one, which is our intake for publicly submitted requests. Public Works has a project. And then our utilities department has 3 standalone workforce projects, one for water billing, our water department, and our sanitary sewer department. So that's what our workforce setup looks like. So how do you expand this? I touched on the limitations, but how do you get around these limitations? And I'm going to demo some of these in a moment here, but the email notification, we ended up integrating with Integromat. And Integromat has a Survey 1, 2, 3 integration piece. And I'll kind of go into that in a second, but you could also use, what's it called, Microsoft. Microsoft also has a Survey 1, 2, 3 integration piece. And we didn't go the Microsoft route because of licensing issues with Microsoft. It would have been extraordinarily expensive to use Microsoft Power Apps, and instead of using Integromat. So we went with Integromat. So doing things like timesheets, that's a perfect application of Survey 1, 2, 3. We ended up making several rather intricate Survey 1, 2, 3 timesheet that are tied to workforce. And also when it comes to creating workforce tickets, out of the box, when you create a workforce assignment, you do so through a web interface. But with Survey 1, 2, 3, you can also, once you have that hosted feature layer, you can actually create assignments using Survey 1, 2, 3, and that kind of gets around that dispatcher worker segregation that's in place. When it comes to delegating assignments, and so if a crew leader is assigned a ticket and he has a crew of 10 guys, how do you make sure all of those 10 guys are working on the same ticket and putting these digital timesheets towards the same ticket? So at the end, you may have one completed assignment and perhaps 10 Survey 1, 2, 3 timesheet entries that are all tied to that assignment. And you can do that through a dashboard. And I'll go into that. Monitoring, real-time monitoring and stuff for upper management handled through experiences. And we do have a lot of SQL reporting going on in the background. This data that's hosted in AGO is pulled down on a daily basis into a SQL database, and then we do SQL reporting from that. So touched on that a little bit before, where we delegate. There's this ticket delegation problem because this is a one-to-one relationship, right? If a ticket is created, it is assigned to a person. It can't be assigned to Bob, and then Bob turns around and assigns it to Fred. That's not the way it works. You are either a dispatcher or you are a field worker, and you can't be both. So in order, you use survey 1, 2, 3 to kind of get around that. And then that way, even if you're a field worker, you can still create tickets. I have some links here. So we have these assignment lists. Okay, it's going to pop me out here, and that's all right. So I have some examples of some assignment lists. I think I just took a screenshot. So that's kind of fuzzy. Okay. So this is an ESRI experience. This is a screenshot of an experience. And I put a screenshot in here because when I share this presentation, if you guys want it, you're not going to be able to log in and see all this, but here's the actual experience. And so this is an experience, and it connects to a whole bunch of dashboards here. So this closed assignments, for example, this is all the closed assignments for Public Works. And it's going to show you both the internal Public Works project and the public workforce project. And it's going to show these side by side and all kinds of filtering and all of this. So this is kind of the dashboard central, where you can almost have a dashboard of dashboards. And then this links to a whole lot of other sub dashboards. So you can take a look at a closed work order. You can search. So for example, if you closed a work order, 2 months ago, and it's this one, you can always, if you have the work order number, you can always search for the work order, get information on it. Take a look at the attachments. If you wanted to open up Workforce, you could come back in here and it would open the Workforce project and kind of give you the information on it. So if you ever got questions on it retroactively, you can kind of go back and, hey, we cleaned mildew from the sign, right? And it's not, but anyway, that's how you can kind of go back in time and look up things. Of course, we have that for all the open assignments as well. This links to SQL reporting. So this is why experiences are so great, because experiences allow you to link to just a wide variety of things. So this, if I click on this, this actually opens up SQL reporting. This is another experience. This is a survey where you can actually create a new internal work order, new public ones for timesheet logs, edit timesheets in case somebody screws up on their timesheet and they need to go back in. Cancel, just everything. Now, when it comes to assignment lists for the field crew, so let's say I'm on Ben's, let's choose a guy that I know is going to have one. So Jan, I think Jan has some. So let's say let's say Jan here has a crew of 5 guys, and I'm never going to get a ticket assigned to me directly, but I'm on Jan's crew. This, all the Public Works guys have this as a shortcut on their mobile device, by the way. So they're always going to get to this. And I'm showing this in a desktop view, but this very nicely displays on a mobile device as well. So you're kind of seeing this big, wide open view, but on a mobile device, this looks stacked. But a guy on Jan's crew can click on Jan. It's going to open up Jan's dashboard. It's going to show all of his internal assignments, his public assignments. And if Jan says, hey, Will, I need you to work on the paused assignment that's like 211 blah 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 and on St. Armand's, I would come in here and I would take a look, make sure, okay, it's the Porsches on the park, and that's what I'm supposed to be working on. And I go out and I do the work. I don't have survey 1, 2, 3 installed on here, but if I were, I could then I could click on this link. It's going to open up the timesheet, and then I can record my labor, my materials, and my equipment against this job. I'd radio back to Jan and say, Jan, the ticket's done. And then Jan would then close out the ticket using the Workforce mobile app. So that just kind of, it's kind of an example of how the crew leader versus the minions is going to work. So. Also at the bottom, you'll see these standing repetitive non-work order. So if we go back, if I have it, I don't think I have it up anymore. I'll have to reopen it. So a lot of the work may be repetitive, and it's not going to have a work order. So let's say for the Parks Department, they work on, let's say, a park, and it's my job every Tuesday to go out and mow this park. That's just what I do. That's not going to generate a work order, but I need to do it, and I need to record my time, my labor, materials, and equipment against that. you have these buttons where it's like, okay, I'm just going to click on general maintenance. It's going to open up survey 123, and I can record it against a preset ticket, so to speak, a standing work order, so to speak. All right, I don't want to get too much in the weeds. I don't have that much time. So here's an example of the publicly facing survey so the general public can submit a ticket. So they can, I think I covered a lot of this already, so I skip ahead. So this is a timesheet. It's in survey 123. When it comes to updating labor and stuff, so obviously when it comes to, hey, you know, Bob got a raise, or, you know, we bought a new batch of trucks, you know, how do you handle that? And that's all handled through survey 123 and the lookup tables. We use a pull data function in survey 123. So we have a bunch of Excel spreadsheets in SharePoint. And so Public Works will, or any department that has working in workforce, they'll go in, they'll update their personnel labor rates, their equipment list and rates, and the material list and rates. And they'll say, hey, well, I've updated my stuff, my equipment, for example. And then I'll reach into SharePoint, download a CSV from that. I'll throw that in survey, push up to the cloud, and it's done. And it's less than a 5-minute thing. So pretty quick. Email integration is done through Integromat, and I think it might be worth it. Let's see, do I have that? No, I don't. But I kind of touched on this before. Microsoft Power Apps also has a Survey 123 integration, but Integromat is the way we ended up going. And as long as you create assignments with a survey, instead of going in through the web interface, an email will get generated. And that can be to a group of people rather than just one person. So here's an example. So when a work order gets created, whether it's a member of the public or one of our internal staff members, they'll get a notification. The internal staff members will get a little bit more detailed notification here, but it'll say, you know, here's the date, here's the work order, you can check the status. That link will actually bring you to a dashboard where it'll filter out all the work orders except for that one based on the work order number. And then when it's completed, on the SQL side, because as I said, the data gets downloaded to SQL and you run SQL reports. On the SQL side, email gets generated once the status is moved to completed, and then the citizen or whomever will get a completed notification saying, hey, your ticket's done. Heavy use of dashboard experiences. I could go into this real quick. Let's see. Yeah. Here we go. So we have a bunch of dashboards, but this is what upper management looks at all day because they really like this system. And the department heads don't necessarily like this system because it kind of shows them exactly how much work is out there and for how long. So this is a dashboard that shows not only the status, but all the departments that are participating in workforce and kind of what's standing out. So the upper management may be like, hey, Public Works, why do you have 25 paused tickets going on right now? What's up with that? And why are 29 of them over 10 days old? And they could actually come in here, and with a link, you could actually, again, using dashboard filters, you could actually come in here and take a look at these tickets and the ones that are old and kind of read about them if you wanted. So you can really drill down and get into it if you want. But upper management does look at this dashboard a lot every day. And if it gets squirrely, for example, there's 4 unassigned, that shouldn't be the case. Those should be assigned pretty quickly. The department directors get yelled at, and that's probably a good thing because it creates accountability. So I'll move a little faster here. So this is kind of how the Dashboard Central works. The experience is kind of the nexus that brings all of these disparate things together, whether it's surveys, whether it's dashboards. I'm planning to implement insights shortly now that we have a lot of data to work with. SQL reporting links, they're all in this Dashboard Central, which is an experience, because an experience you can just bring so much together, and it's so much more flexible than a dashboard itself. You've already seen this. When it comes to accountability, I mean, before we put this dashboard in front of upper management, you can see, utilities had, for example, 67 outstanding tickets. And once you put this in front of upper management, and upper management goes to the utilities director and says, hey, you need to handle this, all of a sudden that dropped back down to 12 in just a few days. So this is kind of validation that accountability is a good thing when it comes to all this. Now, as I'm building all this and getting through it, and it's all working, everybody's like, yeah, this is great. Management's like, hey, we want the public to be able to submit tickets into ESRI Workforce as well. And so they wanted an app. And so because this is all going to be Survey 123 driven, it's really just an app that kind of points to a website. It's a wrapper. And so we made an app for iOS, Android, and then made it available on the city website as well. And this is what it looks like. You guys can actually search for it on the App Store if you wanted to take a look at it. It's called Click to Fix. We got a developer. We put together a really simple app where you can report an issue. It's a very small app. And to this day, we have a lot of use on it. We have over 500 downloads for Sarasota, and it keeps going up every week. So we do monitor on a weekly basis. But having it all AGO-centric, it's really nice because I can update something in one place and that propagates throughout all the end users, whether it's iOS, Android, or cloud or other cloud endpoints. Closing the loop, making sure that satisfaction survey went out, because once you provide something to the public, we wanted to get feedback, make sure we were doing a good job. And if we go back to our dashboards, we actually do have a satisfaction dashboard, which the management also looks at quite a bit. And how are we doing on a certain work order? These are our averages on data, and this is all real time. And so when we do a bad job, we hear about it. People tell us, good, bad, and ugly. And if we don't put notes, sometimes if you don't put notes in it and say what we did, then they give us frowny faces, or even multiple frowny faces. This is actually the same work order. You notice this is the same work order. We got 2 negative reviews on the same work order, which really drags down our average. But we're closing the loop. We're getting back to the person. We're making sure that they know that we're taking their requests seriously. And we monitor this on a weekly basis. So just last month, we had 518 first-time downloads, and I think we're up into the 550s now. So we're averaging about 50 new acquisitions a month or so. So you can see we're still spiking upwards. This chart's a little old, but we're still spiking upwards on terms of app acquisition. This is kind of the timeline. I know I'm running out of time, so I'm going fast, but timeline, we started off with parks, rolled out mobile devices, utilities, looked at what parks was doing. It's like, oh, that's awesome, we got to do that. Went out to water billing, public works got wind of what utilities was doing, and then they wanted to do it. And then we ran out to parking and risk management. And then the city decided we should make it public. And then we pushed out the mobile app last. So this is how it works. This is kind of a flow diagram of exactly how the public aspect of it works. And it's just all GIS. It's really just surveys and ArcGIS Online and dashboards. And it's just a lot of these things woven together. So as I run out of time, thank you for having me. And I don't know if I left any time for questions, but.
Well, are there any questions out there? Excellent presentation, by the way, William. A lot of information there, and of a lot of interest to some folks, I think, in this virtual room right here. We're running a little short on time, but do we have a question or two for William from the general audience?
Okay,
I agree. Impressive. Thank you again, William.
Yeah.
Very well done.